Watching me from. I'm currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, hosting this live right now. We're talking about VAWA self petitions, and I'm going to be answering your questions live. Today is going to be a different format from our other two episodes that we had last week, so check it out on YouTube if you missed out. Today's format is simply just answering your questions live. I have some questions that I prepared before today for you all because I receive the same types of questions all the time. So I want you all to benefit from that today. So we're going to answer questions live and direct. For me, a licensed immigration attorney. And yeah, if you're confused about your qualifications, how you can really move forward to get your green card when your spouse has been abusive, this would be the time to really get clarity, because that's the first step, right, to being able to move forward with that benefit. You need to understand, number one, what is VAWA, right, which I shared in episode 1, and then number 2, what type of documents you need. So once you have those two things down packed, the next thing is to really know how to go about the process. So if you're here right now and you fit into any of these categories, you're a non-immigrant, right, and you're married to a citizen or permanent resident and they become abusive, you can certainly ask questions today and I'll be happy to answer you live and direct. And if you're on Instagram and you want to join on video, do let me know. That can be possible. We can work that out. So you can just ask your questions verbally and get some clarity today. All right. Welcome in. Again, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, for those of you who are in the area, right? We serve clients nationwide anyway, but I love to meet those of you who are in the area. You can visit our office in the South Park area so we can guide you on what you need next. My number is also on the screen, as you can see, so you can give me a call right now to get your questions answered. That's if you don't want to talk in this group setting, right? So, because keep in mind, this is a public forum. We're just here giving you guidance, helping you understand what your options are. So this is not a consultation or this is not legal advice. This is just to put you on the right track on what you need to be able to apply for your trial case. All right. Hello, Laura. Welcome in. Thank you for being here today. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the questions we have down pat. I've answered some of them during the other episodes, but some of them were pretty interesting for today because there's always these what if questions that immigrants have, especially when they're worried about what if the spouse finds out, right? They want to know pretty much how to protect themselves, because this is the reason why immigrants don't even speak up about the issues, because they're afraid. What if the U.S. citizen spouse finds out? What if they get deported? What if they get arrested, right? So if you call the police, what if you get arrested? And that does happen sometimes, but in today's live session, we'll get clarity on what you can do as an immigrant, your rights, right, that will protect you, keep you safe, right? And even if you get arrested, right, you can still qualify for a self-petition, because most likely whatever was going on in that situation was because of the abuse, right? So you have to protect yourself. So this is the reason why you need an attorney, to talk to an attorney. Welcome, CJ, to understand how your situation can really, work for you, because you don't write yourself off just because it just doesn't seem clear to you right now. You need legal guidance to know what really, what's what. All right, so just to recap again from our last two episodes, we talked about VAWA basics and who can file, right? We covered some key eligibility criteria and defined abuse for those of you who think that abuse is only physical. I was able to show you all that abuse can be emotional, financial, verbal, sexual, even in marriage, right? So we defined abuse and talked about some of the filing requirements. And then in the next episode, we actually talked a lot about the evidence, right? Different type of specific evidence. And some of you were surprised at how easy it is to get this evidence. You have it in your phone already. It's not something that you really need a police report for, right? So a lot of the evidence is already in your phone. A lot of the evidence is in your statements, right? So police reports help, therapist notes help, right, for psychological evaluation, but the basic evidence that we need to start a self-petition is something that you already have right now. So just reach out to me so I can help you identify those documents so you can get started right away. All right, hello, John. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. All right, and welcome to Gabby as well, my team who's here helping me. You all are awesome. Thank you very much. And Preet on Instagram. Hello, Matthew. So many people joining in today. It's Friday. We're all at lunch right now, so just take out the next 30 minutes. You can share with your friends as well. Let's deep dive into your VAWA questions. Right. In today's episode, like I said, I just left it open for you all to really feel free to ask those questions so I can provide some honest, direct answers right now. As much as I can, because like I said, this is a public forum. So if you're watching this on YouTube or Instagram, right, you know that this is not your one-on-one consultation. This is really just answering those what if questions, right? I'm going to cover some top 10 questions that I selected based on what you all usually ask me. So I'm going to answer those as well. Also getting some questions from you live right now. So, and then there's going to be like a bonus segment in the end where we're just going to talk about some of the myths, right, with filing a self-petition. The top one being that you need a police report, right? You already know that's a myth. So we'll get into all of that today. And again, like I said, feel free to ask your questions in the comments and share with your friends who may need this benefit, right? This relief, because they are now removal proceedings. They were once married, because with a self-petition, you can still file even if you've been divorced. So don't write yourself off just yet. Seek counsel, all right? Okay, so let's get into some of the questions. I know some of you all get shy when we're doing this live, so I'm going to start off with some of the questions I have, and as we go along, you can piggyback on them and just ask me more because we have to break the ice somehow, right? So I'm going to tell you everything today in this session, talking about the frequently asked questions that I get, okay? So number one that I have today says, can I file a VAWA case if I am divorced? Very typical because generally you do need to have that qualified relative to even qualify for a VAWA case, right? So if you're now divorced, right, automatically you might think, well, I'm divorced, I don't have a relative anymore. But you'd be wrong in thinking that, because you can still file a VAWA case if you've been divorced, so long as it's been only 2 years since the date of your divorce, right? So don't wait too long, but you can still qualify even if you've been divorced. All right. Oh, thank you, Paula. Welcome in. Yeah, I love my hair today too. Ready for the summer. So we're keeping it short now. Thank you. But yes, filing a VAWA case if you're divorced is very possible, right? Divorce does not end your eligibility for a VAWA self-petition, right? You must prove that the abuse happened while you were married and really, make sure that you're still within that window and you haven't remarried. Because again, if you do get married to someone else, that also breaks the timeline for your eligibility. So it's very important that you don't miss out on this very powerful immigration relief that can help you get your green card regardless of any immigration violations like entry without a visa or misrepresentation at a visa interview or even overstay, right? Because most likely you overstayed because of the abuser. So just having these things on your record does not mean that you're finished, right? You need to certainly lock in and file the self-petition. Hello, Nani Fine. Hello, thank you for being here. Wow. Oni and Khadija, thank you all as well on Instagram. Everyone is excited. Like I said, I think it's just because it's Friday and today the atmosphere feels different, where everyone is just ready to get into the weekend. I know I am, so yay, good to see you all here. So don't miss out on your opportunity to file a self-petition, get your green card while you're in the U.S. Except you don't want to live in the U.S. anymore, and that's something that's a question that I'm now asking, my clients, because it's really becoming more challenging to file in this administration. And if you're already in removal, there's always going to be the question of if you want to just depart, right? There's voluntary departure, or if you want to fight. And if they want to fight, I'm always ready to fight. And so VAWA is one of the ways that you fight, even in removal proceedings. Okay. So I'll move on to the next question that I have today. And this one is about, qualifying if your spouse is a permanent resident. All right. The question says, what if my abuser is a permanent resident? LPR means legal permanent resident and not a U.S. citizen. You can certainly still file VAWA. Okay? You do need a qualified relative, and the qualified relative is a spouse, a parent, or a child that's a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. Right? And if it's a child that's abusive, that child has to be 21 and above. Right? So, legal permanent resident, U.S. citizen, they're your qualified relatives for a VAWA self-petition. And you can just go ahead and file your adjustment of status as well in these categories, because again, it is a humanitarian option that will help you waive any inadmissibilities, any restrictions to filing. Because if you enter without a visa, you really cannot file an I-485. You really cannot file a green card application without a waiver, right? And most times without returning back to your home country. But with a VAWA self-petition, you can stay in the U.S., file your relief, get the protection, the deferred action for your I-360, and then file your I-485. Okay, I'm going to talk. Oh, that's my lighting. Never mind. I think it's still good, right? I want to talk about how to what to do once your I-360 gets approved. That's the next step, right? Once your VAWA gets approved, what do you do next? Right? So, if your spouse is a permanent resident or another U.S. citizen, you can still file. Right? Your pathway may differ slightly. I don't even fully agree with this, because even though this is just trying to talk about the fact that permanent residents have a visa restriction, right? Because there's a preference category or whatever. But with VAWA, that actually takes out all of that. So it's just something to note that there might be some differences, but it's not really going to come into play when you're going with the self-petition. So don't worry about that part. Just know that you qualify whether your spouse is a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen. Okay? Awesome. I'm glad that you're finding this very helpful. Thank you for being here. Okay, I see someone's question live. Let me switch and answer that one. This is on Instagram here. Someone is asking questions. Is this about a VAWA case? Okay. Hi, Miriam. Thank you for joining. I'm going to read that. Now, Miriam says, I have a VAWA case that was approved in 2024. Okay. I got a C-31. I'll tell you what a C-31 means in a little bit. I haven't received anything, and my current EAD is expiring. What do I do next? Ooh, Miriam, come on in. You need to send me a DM right now. You're on Instagram, because you should have applied for your I-45. That's really what I'm going to talk about in my next episode, episode 4, talking about what happens next. After your VAWA self-petition has been approved, you should apply for your I-45. That's what's next. Okay? So Miriam just really led us into our next episode materials, but I'll save that to talk about that then, or just send me a DM. I can tell you how to start yours, because I'm not sure why you didn't even do it concurrently in the first place, right? Because you could actually file everything all at once, but anyway. Great question, Miriam. Thank you. Seems like someone's trying to join my video. Can you give me a summary of what you want to ask about, Jody, and then I can add you on here. Let's make sure it's in line with what we're discussing today, which is our VAWA self-petitions. For those of you just joining, thank you for being here. Hi, Sayani. All right. Miriam started following you. Thank you, Miriam. So if you haven't subscribed or you're not following me yet, make sure you do that, because I do this live every week so you don't miss out. And I can answer your questions right here and now and give you some guidance, okay? So this person says, what if I have a criminal record? Ooh, criminal record definitely complicates things when it comes to your immigration process, right? Because I'm just going to turn this off. Because one of the requirements for a VAWA self-petition is that you, the applicant, is a person of good moral character, and that you are admissible, right? So they're gonna check your background, they're gonna do that fingerprints, just check if you've committed any crime. So if you have a criminal record, that's something we should certainly look into to see if that record is tied to the abuse, because that's one of the ways you could get around that if you have a criminal record, okay? So it doesn't automatically disqualify you, but it creates some barriers, some issues that we could address, all right? So if you have a record, you shouldn't be filing any immigration benefit on your own, okay? Welcome, Abu Bay. Tell me where y'all are watching from. Dane, Paula, where you all watching me from right now? I'm currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I help clients nationwide, but Charlotte is really nice. I'm actually looking out the window right now and seeing everyone on the streets, and I'm like, yeah, we're outside. Oh, I think I know what's happening. It's because the weather is getting nicer. That's what it is. So everyone is just hyped to be out there. That's cool. From the Philippines. All right. Thank you for being here, Dane. Let me see a question from Facebook. I'm going to put that up on the screen right now. Let's answer that one. We worldwide. That's right. Worldwide. That's what I love about the internet. I'm so thankful to have this channel and have the opportunity to reach people worldwide. Even though I serve clients nationwide with U.S. immigration, I get to just talk to different people all over the world. That's great. All right. Ashraf, I think I've seen you in one of my lives before. Are you on my Facebook group, Ashraf? So what if someone has entered in PJB? What does that mean? In Maryland. PJBC. What's that? Is that an acronym for something? What kind of visa did you come in on, Ashraf? Oh, parole before judgment. Okay, so you were paroled in. Are you married to a U.S. citizen now? Because if you enter without a visa, you entered on parole. However, you entered and you're married to a U.S. citizen that has become abusive, you can certainly still file a self-petition. Okay, so the key ingredient here is being married to a U.S. citizen and experiencing abuse. You can watch my first two episodes. Right, you experience abuse within the marriage, and the person actually was holding you back from filing your green card by just being controlling, manipulative, just refusing to provide documents, those type of things, right? So, okay, so you entered on an H-1B. Are you now married to a U.S. citizen? What's the parole before judgment thing if you entered on H-1B? Oh, wait, I think, did you ask a question on my group? I think you're on my group, actually. Have you been with this person for 5 years and then, but not sure if you're married? Tell me more. I saw a similar question. Someone who entered on an H-1B, they've been with a woman for 5 years, but they don't know if they're legally married or not, or they're married religiously. I don't know, something like that. And the question there was if they could still file a self petition because they weren't legally married, but they lived together for 5 years. That's certainly tricky, but there's an option there still. Okay, so your wife is also a non immigrant. Tell me what's going on, Ashraf. If you both are on the H visa, she's your dependent, what's going on now? Or is this question not related to a self petition? Are you going to apply for a green card? Because H-1B can lead to a green card too. All right, so let me know. Okay, while we're waiting for Ashraf, I'll just go on to the next question that I see here on my, okay, here on my stuff, what I prepared for you all today. Okay, another typical question. What if my abuser finds out I filed? Very common. And really, it is possible for your abuser to find out that you filed. USCIS is not required to basically share this information whenever you talk about your abuse. It is confidential and protected legally, right? However, your abusive spouse could still find out somehow, maybe by looking at your phone, your email, right? Just make sure that you protect yourself and call the police if you're at home and you don't feel safe because your abuser found out that you're now filing your self petition and they've started just becoming very violent. Because that's really the reason why USCIS is prohibited from sharing any of this information. Because if you're living with a violent person, hello, John, and they find out that you're about to leave them, that you have a way to be free, generally they don't like that. Abusers need you to be there so they can control you. Okay, so if for whatever reason they discover that you filed a self-petition, just make sure you call the police because it's all about your safety. That's the reason why you're filing this self-petition in the first place. Okay? So, Ashraf, I see that you added something else. So are you saying that you both are now on a green card and then is something going on in this marriage? Because if you're already on a green card, or for those of you who might have a 2-year green card and your spouse becomes abusive, there's still a way to file a waiver and not really, you can file your removal of conditions without needing your spouse's signature. But Ashraf seems like he got his green card from an employment-based application, which they just give you a 10-year green card. There's no removal of conditions there. So if you already have a 10-year green card and your spouse becomes abusive, your option at that point is just to divorce them and leave because your green card is not tied to that marriage. Right? Yeah, abusers should not be tolerated at all. Someone said that in the comments. Because you really should not even stay for a minute, especially if you're an immigrant, again, you're in a different country. This is not your country. You don't really like. What are you gonna do here if you can't work? Or you're not free to leave the house, move around. There's different forms of abuse. They'll take the car. Make sure you don't have any money to buy food. You're just stuck. You can't talk to your family back home. Or they keep you isolated. So all those are forms of abuse that you just don't need to take for 1 minute. But if your green card does not depend on that person, then you can just leave, right? So Ashraf, I'm not sure where you're heading with your question right now. I just know you have a wife. You came on H1, and now you both have a green card. So if there's been abuse, you just leave, right? Because that has nothing to do with your green card, has nothing to do with your marriage. But if it's a marriage-based green card and there's abuse, you need to either file a self-petition because you haven't filed a green card before, or you need to file a removal of conditions with an abuse waiver because you have a 2-year green card and now you need a 10-year green card and the spouse won't help. Right? This is all about protecting victims of abuse so they can still have a life and move forward regardless of the situation. Rockefeller, good to see you. Rockefeller, I don't think you ever booked that call with me. It's been like 2 years at this point. Did you ever book that call with me? Or did you get your green card already? Because I'm not sure what's going on with you right now. It's been a while. All right. So certainly protect yourself. Don't be afraid to call the police if anyone is trying to hurt you or threaten you or anything like that. There are resources for you to contact the domestic violence hotline, and you can look up other local domestic violence organizations in your area. Okay? Okay. Well, this timeline has certainly changed, right? This is just an ideal timeline if everything was working as it should. But we know that right now things aren't working as they should. Okay, so this is just for educational purposes. Don't take this as the real timeline for your VAWA case, because right now it's going to take up to 5 years from what I've seen. Okay, a normal green card case will take around that time, but not a self-petition. All right, so if you submitted good evidence and there's no request for evidence along the line, that will help your timeline. And if there's just no other red flags, like you committed a crime yourself. Remember, we talked about that. If you have a criminal record as the applicant, that could affect you with your entire process, because now you have to prove that you're really a person of good moral character, and all of this that happened, if it was domestic violence or something like that, was because of the abuse, right? Like maybe I called the police and then they ended up picking me up. Like I actually didn't do anything. Things like that. So that would add to your timeline, but generally it's going to take up to 5 years. And that's really because they added the interview part of things. As you can see, this shows that there will be an interview at some point. And that didn't used to be the case before, because with VAWA self-petitions, you will just essentially apply, get your work permit. Okay, which reminds me, C31, I was going to tell you all what that meant. Okay. So if you apply for a self-petition, you can apply for your green card and your work permit at the same time. But to get a work permit, there are 2 different categories to get a work permit. This lady that asked this question, Miriam, I hope you send me a DM today, because she must have waited for her self-petition to be approved before she got her work permit on a C31, which is not the strategy that I would recommend, especially if you're still married to your U.S. citizen or permanent resident spouse. Right, because you need a different category, which is C9, so that you can get your work permit in a quick amount of time. Instead of waiting for 3-4 years before being able to work, you can get your work permit, start working, because most of you are still living with your spouse. You're still living here. You need to be able to take care of your bills, take care of yourself, plan your escape, right? So don't wait for C31. C31 certainly will take forever, except there's a reason why you cannot file a C9 and then you have to wait. But for the most part, if you're still married to your spouse and there's just been that pushback, right, with helping you with this green card. I see it all the time. One particular client I'm dealing with right now, she wants to go back to her husband, but I keep telling her, don't do it. Because, number one, divorce is not a requirement, so you can still be married and continue this self-petition. Because the issue is this man does not want to provide the evidence that's required for you to get this green card. So whatever he's saying right now, he's just talking. He needs to provide the evidence. Like, he's not going to do it. So what's not clicking? What's not clicking? But she wants to go back to him, and I understand. With abuse, it takes a while for your mind to snap out of the fact that you are actually being abused, because people don't like to admit that, especially men. They'll be like, oh, I'm not being abused. It's not abuse. They'll give me all sorts of excuses. I'm like, I don't know why you're telling me. You're the one that doesn't have a green card. Okay, I'm here. My role in this whole thing is to help you see the light, to help you open up your mindset and understand what needs to happen for you to be free. And if you can't see that, maybe you need more time. You need therapy. You need something else. But I'm not going to force you to file a self-petition, but I'm going to tell you that it's available. As an immigrant who needs that relief from deportation. Right? So I'll move on to the next question that I have here, which is about, adding your children. Okay, so let's read this one. This one says, Can my children be included in my VAWA petition? Right, especially I'm thinking it's on your young children. If you're living with your children at the time that you're married and the abuse is happening with your children there, certainly you can include them in the petition. All right. So as long as they're under 25, generally the clients I deal with are dealing with young children who are really just, minors at the time, under 16. Generally, they can be added to your self-petition. They can get their work permit. They'll get their green card. Same thing, just like you, okay? So that's the short answer for that one. Okay, any more questions from those of you watching live? I haven't seen anything pop up on my screen. Just want to make sure I'm not missing out, because whenever I'm doing these conversations, I just get so wrapped up because I'm very passionate about helping immigrants snap out of it. Like, you need to focus on what really matters, and it's not this person's, whatever they're telling you. So people are worried, are they going to get in trouble? I'm like, well, they should be thinking of that, not you. If you're an abuser, you're hitting someone, you're assaulting someone, you get in trouble because you caused that. So your self-petition is not what's going to get them in trouble. What they're doing is what's going to get them in trouble. All right? So keep that in mind. This question says, what if I'm undocumented? Can I still file? And the short answer is yes, because again, VAWA self-petition will protect you from any inadmissibilities, like entry without a visa, any misrepresentation, any overstay, any unlawful employment, right? If you're working without permission, all that stuff are violations that a VAWA self-petition will forgive. Right? There may be a requirement to actually file a waiver, but again, as an applicant for a self-petition, you're gonna really be able to still get these benefits but for the abuse, right, you may not have been in those situations. Okay. All right, so just keep that in mind if you are considering, or if you've heard about a self-petition through watching these videos, or you just you don't know what to do, what your options are. Just keep all of these in mind and reach out to me and let's do an evaluation on your case. All right. All right, so the next question says, what if USCIS sends a request for evidence, which is called an RFE? Okay. All right, certainly don't panic, because RFEs are actually the best thing that can happen to you versus a denial, because USCIS is simply asking for more evidence to clarify some things on your file, or just to add new evidence, right? It just doesn't mean that your case is bad or anything of that nature. It will cause some delays, naturally, because they give you some time to respond. And if you miss that deadline, unfortunately, they could deny your case. But if you're able to respond on time, even before the timeline they give you, you'll be good to go. It's really just one of the best things you can get versus a denial. All right. I think I have two more questions here, and I'll look again in the chats just to see if anyone's asking. I think some people asked some questions on the Facebook group. I did see like two questions or so about, I forgot what the conversation was about, but maybe I'll see it before we end this live. I don't know if they joined. The Facebook group is always glitching for the lives, but anyways, feel free to send me a DM if you're watching this after it has aired. I know a lot of you do because I see the comments afterwards, but if you're watching it afterwards and you need that guidance, just send me a DM or leave a comment and I'll try to answer you all personally. Okay, welcome guys on Instagram. I didn't mean to forget you. I'm just here on YouTube right now. I'm doing my slides so you all can actually see the questions I have, but hopefully you can join me on YouTube next time. The link is in my bio on Instagram to see what the rest of the people are seeing right here. We'll talk about your VAWA case and getting clarity and all that. Okay, so question number 9. What if I'm already in deportation proceedings? Can I still file a VAWA case? And the short answer is yes, you can, because VAWA is very powerful in removal as a way to cancel that deportation. Okay, if you've lived here for up to 3 years, you were once married to a citizen, and the relationship became abusive, you certainly can still file a VAWA cancellation of removal. Okay, that one is very tricky because a lot of people don't even know about that one. They still want to focus on the USCIS case, but unfortunately, once you've been in removal, your case is now going to just switch to immigration court, and everything you do, including your adjustment of status, will be done through the judge, except they terminate your case, of which that's not really happening in 2026 anymore. Unless there's really compelling evidence, like an approved I-130 or something, really showing that you qualify to adjust and you don't have any criminal record, all that type of stuff, and you're good to go. Or otherwise, everything will have to go through the court, and your VAWA case can still go through the court as a relief. Right? The whole point of going through immigration court is to let the judge know why you should not be deported right away. Okay, so and if you have that relief because you've talked to an attorney and you evaluated your situation, then you're good to go. Okay, so final question that I have here, and I'm not seeing any in the chats, but we'll just wrap up with this one. Oluwa Pamilering, good to see you. Question number 10 says, what about if the abuse happened? Okay, what about abuse that happened abroad? Okay. Great question. I get this all the time as well, because some people are watching me, again, like we said, we are worldwide. So people are watching me while they've already left the abuser, and sometimes leaving, means going back home. And they want to know if they can still get this benefit and maybe come back, especially when there are children involved. Right? There was this lady that I talked to. It's been at least 2 years now as well, since 2024. But I'm not sure what happened with her, because all her children were U.S. citizens, and her husband just basically prevented her from coming to the U.S. I believe he took her passport. He had been abusive throughout, the marriage. Every time she would visit the U.S. So we're trying to establish times when she was in the U.S. when the abuse happened, if there were examples, or maybe she called the police, things like that, to establish that the abuse actually happened in the U.S. when they lived together at some point, right? And if we're able to establish that, she definitely could be able to file a self-petition, even though she's now abroad. I believe she was Nigerian or something. So the abuse needs to happen in the U.S., right, with the spouse. If it happened abroad and it's happening in the U.S. as well, we're going to combine all that because we're looking at the history of the relationship just the same way we look at the bona fide relationship, right? We look at the history of the relationship. So make sure you're documenting everything that's going on. Make sure you understand, how to protect yourself, calling the police so that when it's time for you to actually go before a judge or present your case before USCIS, or maybe have that panel interview that they're trying to do right now. None of my clients have ever done it. It's something very new, so I don't know if any of you have experienced it. You can let us know in the comments, but what they're doing now is having panel interviews with like multiple people in the room where you have to tell your story and really persuade the officers that you are a victim of abuse and you qualify for a green card. It's ridiculous. Sounds ridiculous, but that's what they're doing. Okay, so make sure you have your evidence together, your timeline together. Having a professional will obviously help you keep that tight and keep the relevant things in there. Because some stories that I see some people send to me, they're really just going on a tangent because they're upset. They're having a mental breakdown. But USCIS does not want to say about your mental breakdown. They want to see the instances of abuse, very specific instances when they called you names, when they threatened to deport you, right? The other stuff, tell that to your therapist because you do need to heal. You need to vent, but it's not going to be on your VAWA declaration. They're going to do that. The VAWA declaration is very specific on what they want, and we help you put that together in a way that makes sense, in a way that's organized to help your case move forward and help you get the results that you need, right? There's no guarantees, obviously, in any USCIS filings that you will definitely be approved. But if you meet the criteria, you should go for it because that's your pathway to freedom. Regardless of what anyone says, you experienced that. You know what you went through. You know what's going on. So you can certainly file a case. All right? So I think we're at the end right now of the questions. Let's see what else we have here. I think I was just going to talk about some of the myths that you see with filing self-petition. This is just very common with people really hesitating to move forward because they don't really understand that VAWA covers a broad range of issues that physical abuse is really not even required or even a police report. So myth number one says you need physical abuse to file a VAWA case. And that's wrong, okay, because emotional abuse, financial abuse, like I mentioned, verbal abuse, all of those things combined can certainly make a case for a self-petition. All right, myth number two is that VAWA only protects women. I get a lot of pushback from my male clients when I'm talking to them in a consultation and really seeing the abuse because of the experience that I have over this half a decade of doing this. Once they start talking, I can already tell. And they just immediately start being defensive, like, no, hell no. Especially Nigerian men, to be real. Hell no, But I'm like, oh God, it's happening. It's happening. That's what it is. So thankfully, VAWA covers men as well. If you're in the LGBT community, right, you're also covered. Just any relationship, any qualified relationship for a green card can also qualify you for a VAWA self-petition, right? Because abuse does not know gender. It doesn't know age. It just does what it does. It's mental. We all have a fragile psyche. As much as we would like to think that we're very strong, it's very easy to manipulate someone. Before you know it, you've sold all your things and left your country to come here. Like, I've heard this exact scenario like 3 or 4 times during this practice. People selling all their stuff back home, moving over here for someone, and they come here and find out either the person is married or they didn't have the things that they said they did. They couldn't even qualify to be their sponsor, right? Because it's that, or maybe they're not working, whatever. So because you want connection, we all want that love and connection, and we're looking for someone to choose us. And once that person chooses you, all the sense goes away. That's why you're joining my live right now, so I can put some sense into you, and you can stop playing with your life and actually make good choices for yourself. Okay? So myth number 3, of which this one, self, I'm always like, whatever, right? Because most people don't want to file because they think that filing a VAWA means that the abuser will go to jail. And the reason I'm like, whatever, is like, I don't even know why you care about someone who clearly doesn't care about themselves, right? I always tell the people that I talk to that VAWA is an immigration remedy about you and not about your spouse and their transgressions. Whatever they're doing is going to come back and bite them with a civil lawsuit of some sort, maybe even criminal, because some of them are actually assaulting you with a weapon, hitting you, punching, choking. You should be calling the police. So if they're doing those things, they should be going to jail. That's my take. And they should be going to jail. But the thing is, VAWA is not about that. VAWA is really about your immigration status and not about sending them to jail. So don't ask me that question again. Would they get in trouble? Yes, because they're an abuser. And somebody needs to, knock some sense into them. If they're having problems with their childhood or their own issues, they need to go to therapy and not take it out on you. Because you're not a therapist. You're not their punching bag. That's not, that doesn't make any sense for you to stay stuck all those years trying to appease this person and whatever, and they're still not filing for you. Like, come on. No. They need help. I've worked with people who had spouses who were alcoholics, just drug addicts, things like that. They weren't really being abusive. Well, they were financially abusive because they would take all their money. But, it took so long for this person to realize that they were being abused because there wasn't any physical, like nothing was going on. The person would just take all the money in joint account and disappear for weeks and then come back when they need more money and disappear. So to them, they just felt like, I need to divorce him. He's taking all my money. I'm just, I don't know. I'm worried and all that. I'm like, well, sister, you are being abused, financially abused, because it's the money that this person's not working, right? You work all day, do all this stuff, put it in a joint account for your family, and then this person just comes in and takes it all for their habits or their addiction or whatever is going on with them. Yeah, you need to divorce them and file a self-petition. Okay? So it's not always going to be very clear to you. That's why you need one-on-one guidance. You need to call me right away so I can help you figure this out, help you understand your options to actually get this green card, and so you can start living your life, right? So again, my number is on the screen. My email is also here too. You can take a screenshot if you want to send me an email, right? And my link to book a call is going to be in the comments. So you can do all of those things just to reach out to me for that one-on-one conversation. And this will bring us to the end of today's episode. It's been about 40 minutes thereabout. We're talking about VAWA self-petitions, answering your questions live. Those of you who joined, thank you very much. All right. So I don't know who this is, but someone was calling me. But anyways, we're wrapping up anyways. So next week, like I said, we're going to talk about what to do next after your VAWA approval. Like, Miriam, I hope you're still here. I hope you've sent me a DM already, because I don't know how you're just chilling with an approved VAWA and not getting your green card. That's really your next step. So I'll break it down for all of you all, what you need to do next once you get that self-petition and you are ready to live your full best life in the U.S. Okay? Again, I'm your host, Attorney Ify. what's that thing my friends used to say in law school? A Charlotte, oh, I forgot what it's called. A high-powered Charlotte attorney. Yeah, that's it. That's right. So that's me, high-powered Charlotte attorney. You can reach out to me for guidance wherever you live. Right, it's going to be a virtual conversation, and if you need to come to my office, we're here too in the South Park area if you need that. So yeah, excited. Talk to you all. Oh, so that call must have messed up the volume here on Instagram. But, anyways, you can check out the rest of the live on YouTube. And I will talk to you all next week. Okay? Make sure you subscribe and tune in for our next episode, which is going to be great. And then season 3 will start in May at some point. I'll keep you all updated on that. Okay? Thank you. Have a great afternoon and rest of your lunch. Bye.